Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mass Retirees Weekly Update. Today's Friday, August 2nd. I'm Sean Duhamel. Thank you so much for joining with us and tuning in again this week. Now, by now, most of you should know that Governor Maura Healey signed the fiscal year 25 state budget this past Monday. We are extremely proud and excited to report that several major provisions pertaining to public retirees that are very positive for public retirees were contained in this year's budget. If you read Frank Valeri's special email message to our members that was sent on Wednesday, you've already received this information, but just let me quickly recap the two main items. First and foremost, for the first time since 1985, which I believe is 39 years ago, the basic life insurance benefit for state retirees and active state employees has been increased. The new level as of July 1st, 2025, so next July 1st it takes effect, will be $10,000. We have been working on this issue for 20 years. When Frank became president back in 2013, this quickly became one of his personal priorities to get this done. And for a variety of reasons, it's complicated, it's expensive, it takes a long time for this type of legislation to be enacted, regardless of the merits of it. But perseverance has paid off. It is now state law. We have a new $10,000 benefit. We believe that this benefit will quickly become local policy as well. As we have explained, cities and towns already have the ability to establish their own basic life insurance benefits at whatever level they choose. The state legislature cannot mandate that under the provisions of Proposition 2.5. It's a local issue. We will be doing everything possible to work with local retirement systems who don't have direct responsibility over health insurance and life insurance benefits, of course, but they certainly play a role in advocating at the local level. We'll also be working directly with our public employee committees and the insurance advisory committees and anyone else who's looking to help to make sure that we get this implemented at the local level as well. But it's a tremendous victory for us, for you. We're very, very grateful not only to Governor Healey for signing this provision into law, but also to the Group Insurance Commission and Matt Vino and his team for their support through this process. And most importantly, Chairman Aaron Michowitz, the House Ways and Means Chairman, Speaker Ron Mariano, State Representative John Lawn, who has been the champion of this issue for many years. If it weren't for the action of the House and getting it into the budget, which was ultimately supported by the Senate leadership, this would not have happened, and we are eternally grateful. Now, at the same time, we also have the creation of a special commission on the COLA that was filed by Governor Healey last winter in her budget at our request. And this COLA commission is extremely important on a few different levels that we have been explaining in recent weeks. And I want to spend the bulk of today's message talking a little bit about the history of the COLA, how we arrived at where we are today, and where we're hoping to go with this. Now, the COLA commission is modeled after a very similar type of commission that we helped create back in 1996 that led to the massive COLA reform law that was passed in 1997, Chapter 17 of the Acts of 1997, which has been widely successful in most retirement systems across the state. But after 26 years, some fixes are needed, particularly at the state level when it comes to the state retirement system and the teachers' retirement system. And I'll get into a little bit more of that detail in just a moment. Last week's message, if you haven't read it already, go back, take a look. We cover the aspects of this at the local level in a lot of detail. We also provide a full listing of where the COLA base stands across the 102 local retirement systems. Each local retirement system has the ability, through the work of the retirement board and the approval of the local legislative body, to set whatever COLA base they see fit at the local level, with $12,000 being the floor and the ceiling being the sky's the limit. And at the local level, the base, as you might know, ranges from that floor of $12,000 that was first set back in 1997 through COLA reform, all the way up to the highest level right now that we have in Massachusetts is $30,000, and that would be in the town of Montague out in Western Mass, who earlier this year broke the glass ceiling, so to speak, and went to 30 grand for their COLA base. And by the way, Montague led the way 20 some odd years ago, 25 years ago now, by being the first system to go to $18,000. So our friends out in Montague are certainly trendsetters when it comes to the COLA base. But let me take a little bit of a step back, way back in time, well before my time, back in 1966. 1966 is when the COLA law under our retirement law, Chapter 32, was first established. Back then, the COLA was restricted to only be paid to retirees with pensions less than $5,000. And over the past several days, we've been doing a lot of research here in the office, going back, looking at our records, looking at the general laws, looking at the history of the COLA. And it's amazing what you forget over the years, or what information kind of just falls by the wayside. But 1966 was the key year. Part of the original COLA law was also this really peculiar provision that would have allowed, had there been a negative inflation year, it actually set into the law that if in the event of negative inflation, so something less than zero in terms of the CPI, that retirees' pensions would actually be reduced. So there would be this clawback provision that would have reduced retiree pensions in the event of negative inflation, which is bizarre. And going back and looking at the records, the legislature quickly realized that this was bizarre, because about a year and a half later, that provision of the COLA law was repealed and struck in from the general laws, never to appear again, thank God. I can't even imagine a situation where if we went into some type of a negative CPI recession type period, when retirees' pensions would be reduced. It's just strange. And thankfully, again, they repealed that. But part of the evolution of the COLA law in 1967-68, the $5,000 cap on pension COLAs was increased to $6,000. So at that point, anyone with a pension less than $6,000 received a COLA. But if you made $6,000 or more, you got no COLA at all. Now, the first major victory for our association, and we were founded back in 1968, so just 3 years or so after we were founded, our first major legislative victory was repealing that law and changing the COLA law to make it that anyone with a COLA, any retiree would receive a COLA regardless of the size of their pension. And that set things into motion in terms of having a COLA base. In 1971, the COLA base was established at $6,000, and it gradually, incrementally grew from that period of time. And as you can see from what I said a moment ago in terms of the range of the COLA, and remember at the state level for state and teacher retirees, the COLA base remains at only $13,000, which is exactly why we need this COLA commission, because we need to fix this problem and improve this benefit going forward. But in the mid-70s, another major change took effect, that under the original COLA law, the CPI, whatever it happened to be for that year, and the federal government establishes the Consumer Price Index, but whatever the CPI happened to be was what the COLA would be based on that original $6,000, and then again it grew over time. Well, in the mid-1970s, when inflation went through the roof, there were some periods where inflation was 11% or even higher in terms of the CPI, and the state government stepped in and said, well, wait a minute, we can't afford under our pension funding mechanisms to continue to pay COLAs this large. And they changed the law to cap or to make the COLA payment no longer be automatic based on the CPI, and from that point forward it was set by the state legislature. But our association used that change or that reform as an opportunity to change the COLA law to benefit public retirees. And this major change in the benefit is very unique, does not exist in most other states, and it has remained in effect to this very day. And that is that every COLA that you receive becomes a permanent part of your pension. In most other parts of the country, public retirees, if and when they receive any COLA at all, and I think you've heard us talk about the fact that there's a growing and very troubling trend across the country where in many states, COLAs are no longer routine, if they're paid at all. Texas is a great example where Texas retired teachers last year received their first true COLA payment in 25 years. You heard that right. First true COLA payment in 25 years. But in most states, it's treated as a bonus when it's paid, or a so-called 13th check. Here in Massachusetts, even though COLAs are limited to the first $13,000, the first $20,000, in the case of Montague, the first $30,000, whatever that COLA payment is, that becomes part of your pension. So it's paid year after year after year, and it continues to accumulate, which is a incredibly important benefit that has really helped members over time, and to a degree is made up for the fact that we have a base. Most states, even if they apply a COLA percentage to the full pension, it is almost always capped. It is never, very, very rarely, I should say, applied to the full pension without a cap. In most cases, it's capped at, say, $500 or $1,000 and maybe $1,500. It varies from year to year and state by state, but it's almost never paid on the full benefit. The systems just are not designed to accommodate that. And unlike Social Security, which is a pay-as-you-go system, Social Security is funded through the federal payroll tax, and ultimately, the federal government, if they choose to, can print their own money. States and cities and towns and district retirement systems cannot print their own money. So our systems have to be funded. And that leads me to the next major change in the COLA law, which really took place in the mid-1980s. And that's when Massachusetts, and at that point in time, we were one of only 2 states that was not properly funding our pension system. It was Massachusetts and I think Mississippi. And it's not good company you want to keep in terms of funding of these things to be compared to Mississippi. No offense to anyone out there who's from Mississippi, but I think you get the point. But by the mid-1980s, the state adopted the pension funding laws and put us on a track to pay off the unfunded liability, which is all of the debt that had built up with our pension systems up to that point. From that point forward, the Commonwealth as well as municipal governments began to properly fund their share, their responsibility to the pension system going forward. And since 1988, we have made tremendous progress in paying off that debt. And if you looked at the July Voice and our cover story, we now have 20 systems that are either near or at being fully funded. And every system in Massachusetts is on track to be fully funded by 2040, if not much sooner than that. So all of that progress that has been made and all the success of the pension funding and the pension investments has paid great dividends, quite literally. And our expectation, our request, really our demand, is that that success be shared with all of you. Because after all, that's your money. You paid into the system. We don't participate in Social Security here in Massachusetts in terms of our public workforce, as all of you know. So for the most part, public retirees from Massachusetts rely, in some cases exclusively, on your public pension. And that's why it's so important going forward to find a way to increase and improve and fix the state and teacher COLA base, create a new special or senior or enhanced COLA for long-term retirees, those of you who have been retired for 15 or more years, who have not kept up with inflation, to find a way to give you an additional boost. But these changes, these fixes, these improvements have to be made in the context of the pension funding schedule. Why this is so difficult or expensive is just the sheer number of people who are members of the retirement system. And as I mentioned a minute ago, every COLA that you receive is paid in perpetuity for the rest of your life. That means that the state, when they approve an increase in the COLA base or approve the 3% COLA, say for this year, they have to take into consideration and fund the COLAs going forward. Because again, you're not just going to receive that COLA in 2024. You're going to get it in 2025 and 26 and for the rest of your life. And that money has to be appropriated and invested as part of the pension system under the funding schedule. It's no longer a pay-as-you-go system. And today's email message, and if you're a member of our association, please take a moment to read today's email. There's a lot of information. I get into details of exactly how these things work. If you're watching this video and you're not a member of our association, please consider joining. If you're a retiree, you can be a full member of Mass Retirees. If you're an active employee who is looking into retirement or nearing retirement age and you're watching this video on Facebook or YouTube as a resource to help you plan for your retirement, you can join our association as well as an associate member and receive our newsletter, the weekly email blast to help you better prepare for your eventual retirement. All of this information can be found on massretirees.com. You can also join us online on our website as well. Now, the focus of the COLA Commission, again, first and foremost, is to find a way forward for the state and teacher COLA base to improve that benefit. The other aspects of it is going to be looking at the pension funding schedules and finding a way through the pension funding schedules, whether it's reforming the schedules, changing some of the assumptions around. These details remain to be seen. But in order to afford and pay for these benefits going forward, we believe that some adjustments might be necessary to the pension funding schedules. Those type of recommendations will also be available for local retirement systems to implement. And then in addition to the senior COLA, which ultimately, if it is created, would become a local option for cities and towns. Now, I also want to point out or answer a question that we get quite frequently, particularly from new retirees. And the question is, why can't the COLA be applied to my full pension? Just like when you were working, anytime you got a pay raise, it was applied to your full salary. Well, first of all, as a retiree, you're no longer full-time or you're no longer employed. You're no longer receiving a salary, you're receiving a retirement benefit. The retirement system, particularly here in Massachusetts, but around the country in general, are not designed to accommodate COLAs based on a full pension. And as I've explained, going all the way back to 1966, when the COLA law was first implemented, there was never an intention to pay COLA benefits on someone's full pension. Particularly now with retirees, in some cases retiring with double-digit pensions or triple-digit pensions, it's just not possible from a financial standpoint to apply the COLA to that full pension. The contributions that you made as an active employee and the government's share of those contributions did not factor in or take into account or plan for COLA benefits to be that large. So we're going to be restricted going forward. But that being said, our hope is that we will continue to incrementally increase the base. Now, back in 1997 with COLA reform, the $12,000 COLA base that was established at that time reflected the average Social Security benefit paid to retirees in Massachusetts. Our hope is to better align the state and teacher COLA, as well as provide the opportunity for local communities to do the same, but to better align the COLA base going forward with the current average Social Security benefit, which is approximately $22,000 here in Massachusetts. It might take us a little ways to get there, but we believe that the goal should be to keep the base relatively in line with that average benefit. We think that that's fair. We think that that's sustainable and affordable going forward. Now, one of the things we're going to do in the coming weeks is to provide a deeper dive into the pension funding schedules. What are they? How do they work? Why are they necessary? And what are the different assumptions or calculations that go into the schedule? Because we talk about these schedules quite a bit, but we've never really taken a deep dive into how they operate. And the funding schedule, again, will be a really important focus of the Special Commission. So look for that update as well as in the coming weeks. But this has been a great week for our association. Again, we are very excited, very thankful for the accomplishments that we were able to get through during the current session. I want to thank our legislative team, of course led by Tom Bonarigo and Nancy McGovern, for the work they did and the success that we've had. We have a great team working for you here at the association. I'm very proud of them. Very thankful for the opportunity to work for all of you, and I know Frank and our entire staff feel the same way. So with that, I'm going to sign off for this week, but we have a lot of work to do. The COLA Commission is going to probably be underway in early September, but we've got a lot of work to do here through the month of August to prepare for that and report back to you on a variety of different things going on that directly impact retirees. But thank you for tuning in, and we'll be back to you again next week. Bye-bye, everybody.